Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of Hacker Hangouts. I'm your host Rohit or Ropats. Super excited to have Patrick with us today. He's a former combat medic turned Web3 engineer and DevRel, and now he's the lead DevRel at Forward Research. So Patrick, why don't you give us a quick introduction about yourself and tell us how you got here, how you got into the Web3 space and Arweave.
Well, first off, it's a huge honor to finally get an invite from Rohat. Like, finally. I mean, it took a while, but yeah, I finally got an invite to something. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so without taking up all this crazy, all the time and trying to detail all this, but I served in the U.S. military. I was a special ops combat medic, and I was a paratrooper. Went through Ranger indoctrination program, so I was part of Ranger Battalion for a while, and I ended up kind of in this whole space of being a mass casualty coordinator as well. Experienced some craziness with like human trafficking attempts and everything while I was the mass casualty coordinator for the earthquake in Haiti. And that led me down a new rabbit hole where I got out of the military and I was working in the private sector, kind of worked in the human trafficking interdiction space, and as well as teaching combat medicine and stuff all through like the Middle East and Northern Africa. And so I developed a deep and ingrained knowledge of like how human trafficking works, unfortunately. And one of those things that that is the greatest revenue source of human trafficking is counterfeit goods. And I told myself that if I could cut off the revenue source of human trafficking by building something, then I would. And fast forward 2015, I started getting into software engineering education, hopped around from different jobs trying to pay the bills and stuff like that. But then 2020, I jumped in both feet into the Web3 space, just trying to learn as much as I could. A year later, I started a startup where it was for authenticating physical products with like NFC to NFT technology kind of thing. And the whole purpose was to authenticate physical products to cut off the revenue source by, making it harder to spoof things. And when I mean like spoof or create counterfeits, it's not just like Gucci bags and things like that or Rolexes. It's also like pharmaceuticals, car parts, electronics, like all kinds of stuff. And so I was really in that space to build that kind of stuff. And lo and behold, one of the things that I found myself building on was Arweave. And simply because, one, I didn't have to go through all of these hoops trying to figure out like tokenomics and things like that. And, everything was very simply structured, not some crazy, smart contract writing or anything like that. I was still fairly new to the Web3 space. And, the easiest bridge, in my opinion, from Web2 to Web3 is Arweave, because you don't need to be some based Rust engineer. You don't need to be, you don't need to take 68 hours of education, Patrick Collins, for Solidity, that kind of stuff. If you got some decent TypeScript knowledge and things like that, then, you can really jump into Arweave and build some really cool stuff. And so from there, I had a hard time finding some funding because that crypto bubble popped, and it was really centered around like NFTs and stuff. And nobody wanted to fund anything that had the letters N, F, and T inside their project. So I made my way into Developer DAO. And that's where, I spent a great deal of my time just kind of, building and learning from everybody in the developer DAO space. And I participated in my very first hackathon, Web3 hackathon. I actually won it. And somehow I ended up spending a lot of the time, just teaching, one, what did I build? And two, how did I build it? And somehow I kind of fell back in love with the education side of things. And that's pretty much how I ended up getting into DevRel. And I was invited to join the first cohort for DevRel Uni, which, by the way, if anybody, loves to teach and things like that, but are also pretty solid engineers, then I highly recommend go check out DevRel Uni. It's an amazing opportunity to learn from some of the best DevRels in the Web3 space. And so I was part of the first cohort. Immediately after that, I started working as a DevRel for a couple different projects. I worked for a small startup called Intuition. Then I worked for Pocket Network and with like decentralized RPCs. And then after that, it was Arweave, and now we're here.
That's a really nice journey, I would say. I think it has a lot of like deep value in there. I would say like the reason for you to come into this space is like really moving and inspirational. I think we need more applications that have like such values, I would say. Yeah, definitely better than NFTs. But yeah, I think that's really great. Yes, I can vouch for both Developer DAO and DevRel Uni. It's been great. So like anyone looking for education, do check those out. So guys, quickly before we dive into the main presentation, we're going to kick off cohort 3 of Arweave India. So that means we're doing debriefs in 4 cities. We put out a tweet, so do share it with your friends. We'd love a shout out and like spread the love. So that's that, and I guess we can get into the main presentation. If you guys have any questions throughout this, feel free to drop them in the chat, and then we'll touch on them in the Q&A section. So Patrick, why don't you take it away with ArFleet?
Yeah. Okay. So ArFleet is something that, to be perfectly honest, I'm really bullish on, and I feel like ArFleet is one of those things that is, I feel like one of the final puzzle pieces to the Arweave ecosystem, because I mean we've got so much going on. I mean, we're talking about obviously AO with parallel computation. We have obviously the permanent storage layer, just Arweave, and then you also have Perma Web, where you're deploying your front end, things like that. And there was always a couple missing pieces, especially when you had just Perma Web and Arweave. One was very slow communication between the storage layer itself and then Perma Web, your front end. AO comes around, really fixes that, and it makes it almost like a very clear middleware almost interaction, and things really started to speed up. Very high TPS, and your ability to build very easily using stuff like Lua. But then the next part was like, okay, I can build games, I can do all this stuff, but I may not necessarily want to have all of this permanent. And there, in lies the launch of ArFleet, and Sergey is the creator and founder of ArFleet, and he's done some amazing things with ArFleet. And I honestly think now that we have permanence and permissionless permanence with Arweave, we have permissionless temporary storage with ArFleet. You have PermaWeb with your front end. You have AO for working as anything from like middleware and a lot of other things. You have the expansion of newfound methods of DeFi and everything in AO. Arweave ecosystem has really blown up into something completely new than what it was a year ago today. Like a year ago today, we still hadn't announced Arweave. As a matter of fact, I was kind of going through some of like the old history of messages, and AO was still fairly concept, it's in concept stage, a year ago today. And there's slight conversations about it. And to see where the entire Arweave ecosystem is today is just, it's astounding. So today we're going to go through ArFleet. And you guys ready for this?
Yep, guys, drop some emojis in chat.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and share my screen. Let's see here. Share screen. Okay, here we go. Pause for effect. Let's see. And Give me just a second. I think this is right. Make the selection. All right, cool. All right, you guys can see the empty Arc browser.
We can see Discord.
Okay, all right, hold on. See, of course, I'm going to mess this up. Change window. All right, let's do this again. Round 2. Here we go. Make a selection.
By the way, I totally understand this. The new Discord UI is pretty wacky.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to. This is my first time doing it. Are we seeing Arc now?
Yeah. Arc is visible now. Yeah, sweet.
Oh, okay, excellent. Good. All right. Oof. All right. It would have been really sad if I already got defeated by just sharing screen in Discord. Okay, cool. So we're at the ArFleet website, and you see 3 options here. You've got ArFleet Web, ArFleet JS, and then Docs. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into Docs because I just want to cover a few really quick things. So first off, what is ArFleet versus what is ArWeave? So really simply put, ArFleet is a time-limited data storage with permissionless peers, just like the permissionlessness behind ArWeave. You have that in ArFleet as well. The biggest difference is ArWeave is the underlying block weave, while ArFleet is built on AO, which in itself is also built on ArWeave. Okay, so why would you even have temporary storage versus permanent storage? The use cases are very abundant, but I'm going to give you 2 where these use cases are very easy to articulate. And then I think understanding these 2, everybody can really kind of get a deeper understanding and start coming up with their own use cases. So use case number 1 is something like shared docs. And these docs are something that are like editable docs. So if I share with Rohats let's say like a Google Doc, and him and I can both edit this documentation and everything, then that needs some sort of temporary storage layer that allows us to manipulate a documentation and some sort of doc. And then later on, when we have both reached some sort of consensus or something like that this doc is complete, then we can actually complete saving the doc on ArWeave for that permanent layer storage. And so that's one major use case. The next use case is something like a fully on-chain game. So this is really cool because imagine where you have these, and we've all seen an abundant amount of games being developed in the ArWeave ecosystem. Now, what's really cool and the big unlock with ArFleet now is that you can have the game state itself saved for a very short and limited period of time. And then the results of that game, either, I kick Rohat's ass in chess or something like that, then I want to make sure that I save that for 200 years. But if he beats me, then I'm not going to reach that consensus. I won't let him do it, and I can't let that evidence be saved for 200 years. But in reality, having the ability to have the game states and then being able to have the game results, game states on ArFleet, and then the game results on ArWeave is a huge unlock. The fact, can you imagine trying to save the entire game state on ArWeave for 200 years? The cost of that would be enormous. But the fact that you would be able to have a very short temporary, what is called deal in ArFleet, and then having those results, those final results on ArWeave, makes the entire system very, very cost efficient. So that's pretty much how the difference between like ArWeave and ArFleet and a couple use cases work. Now, if you're somebody that wants to immediately start playing with ArFleet, first off, you don't need to be an engineer. if you want to jump right into the ArFleet Web, there's no requirement to be an engineer to do this. Okay, it's pretty simple, but everybody does, whether you're an engineer or not. If you want to interact with ArFleet, you do need a Genesis pass. How long do you need a Genesis pass for? So you actually need a Genesis pass to basically till AO launches the mainnet. When AO launches the mainnet, you will no longer need a Genesis pass. You will simply just use wrapped AR and be able to interact with it. No Genesis pass required. Okay, so how do you get a Genesis pass? It's actually ridiculously easy. We're going to go click on this link here for the under tradability. You're going to click on Genesis pass. And then from here, I want to make sure that I actually, if I want to just interact with the ArFleet Web, I only need one Genesis pass. But if I want to play with ArFleet JS, and I want to play with both the client side as well as the provider side, then I actually would recommend getting 2 Genesis passes. And luckily, these Genesis passes are actually pretty affordable. So just for this use case, I'm going to go ahead and go through the process of getting 2. So I'm going to type in 2. That's going to cost me 0.158. And so that's pretty freaking affordable for a couple Genesis passes. And then I'm going to click buy. It's going to go through the normal process of signing in with my wallet. There we go. And then it's going to send these passes to me. Do one more sign in. Let's see if this goes through. It'd be really funny if this takes a few minutes. Come on now. Don't do this to me while live. That would be like the typical thing. Like while you're live, things are suddenly slow. Okay.
I think it's a universal law.
That is like the universal law, and I feel like it's the crux for all DevRels. Like the Murphy's law of DevRel-ness. Anytime you're live, everything must go wrong. That's just how it works. Okay, I'm gonna cancel it and refresh it one time here. So here, hit OK. I have a feeling that it's still going to execute because this actually did this to me earlier, where it actually still completed the execution. But anyways, you do need at least one Genesis pass. I believe I still have 2. But I was just going to go through the process just to walk everyone through it. Now, from here, let's go ahead and just go right into ArFleet Web. So what's the difference between ArFleet Web and ArFleet JS? So ArFleet Web is a very nice user interface where you can immediately store something very, very easily for a temporary state. Now, the temporary state right now is by default, because we're still in testnet and they're still, adding new features and everything like that here. The current state is that if you store anything here, it's stored up to basically the release of mainnet, and I believe it may have a storage of like 1 year from now. So everything should make a clean migration and everything from testnet to mainnet. But yeah, so right now the default is a 1 year storage. So let's just go through that process now and do a single asset. So I'm actually going to grab something from here. Let's just grab a random asset. Let's see here. Here we go. ArFleet test. That's what I want to do. So where did my screen go? It's all the way over here, of course. There we go. All right. So I hit the plus sign, upload the file, and here we go. Yeah, let's upload one of the llamas. That'll be perfect. There we go, that llama. And as this uploads, it uploads in 3 different places. But why does it have 3 different placements. So while this is going, which it's pretty much already done, it's just going to finalize a couple things here. Actually, it's finalizing pretty quickly. Funding the deal, spawning the deal. I'm going to go back to the documentation here, and I want to go down over to learn, and we're going to look at the life cycle of the deal. The encryption. So the reason why we have 3 different places and placements, and you can actually create more placements if you want, but keep in mind you are funding all 3 placements. Now, it's because in here, I'm just going to read it off. It says, if there's in-storage providers storing a replica of the data and all of them pass verification challenges, the likelihood of the data loss is minimized. So this works a lot like how, generally how consensus works inside of Arweave, if everybody's, fairly familiar with that. If you're not, we could possibly discuss that later if anybody has questions on that later. But then the problem with that is, however, this introduces a problem known as a Sybil attack, where one provider can pose as several different providers and store the replica in one place while getting rewards for all of them. So this is not an ideal situation, and we want to make sure that people can't perform Sybil attacks on data like this. So what Sergey has done is he's built it out as an EAS encryption. So this EAS encryption is where the replicas look completely different, both to the provider as well the deal process, and it becomes impossible to save storage because the final replicas and all of the final replicas are not identical at all, and so. This will help prevent that. The Sybil, it has that Sybil resistance basically. So let's go back over to ArFleet, and here we are. Okay, and looks like it is still uploading. I love how I did this earlier here, and it was so fast, and now it's going slow now. But that's the price we pay when we're doing this live. So, anyways. What you can do, this is actually really cool. So I'm going to use this example over here. And I'm going to click here. And notice as I highlight this, I can download this asset, I can share it, or I can immortalize it. Now, this is cool because if I want to immortalize it, let's go ahead and click here. And then I want to proceed. This actually takes the data and immortalizes it, meaning it stores it permanently on Arweave. So I've taken this temporary asset and then moved it to a permanent asset. So I can actually take this, copy this. I'm going to laugh if this actually doesn't work because, typical. Here we go. Is this doing it for me? Yeah, of course it's not working for me. That's exactly what it's going to do. So anyways, this will take this URL here will actually take me to the asset itself. Most likely what's happening is that because I just moved it over, it takes a little bit for that URL to populate. But yes, so that's how we actually immortalize an asset from that temporary storage to the permanent storage, which is really cool because it's very, very, very seamless. If you look at a lot of other protocols that have temporary storage on chain, the process of moving temporary data over to something that is permanent is very, very difficult, and you have to do a lot of custom coding. While in this case, it's a simple button click. And, again, guys, I have not done any coding yet. So this is actually really, really cool. I love how this pops. Here we go. All right, excellent. Now we're done. All right, 1, 2, and I love how this pops up right at this moment. So what I'm doing right now is I am funding all 3 of the placements. And there we go, and 3. So it funds all 3 placements, and I can come back over here. Looks like it's verifying. Once it's verified, then it's going to complete the storage, and that'll be it. So yep, 2 are completed. last verification, and then we'll be all done, and then be able to do everything from like immortalizing, sharing, and downloading. So everything's been very, very smooth, other than the fact that it was a little slow. But from here, I don't have to do any hard coding or anything like that to actually start engaging with ArFleet. So that is the ArFleet Web in a nutshell. I think I'm going to jump right over. I'm just going to check the chat real quick, see if there's any like crazy questions or anything. And here we go. Curious for games, the pros and cons of using ArFleet versus AO to store game state. AO is great as it gives the ability for dynamic incremental state updates through processes. Okay, this is a great question. There is going to be, in my opinion, in the very beginning, a mixture of usage for, let's say, the game state itself on AO, and then like a temporary storage of assets or interactions that are that could be happening in ArFleet. So this could be something as you have to develop a custom character or something like that for a specific game, and now let's go with something like I'm sure most people here may be very familiar with like Reality Protocol. So Reality Protocol is, if you've played Llama Land or if you've done the fishing game or anything like that as well, they have these maps, and in those maps you can actually have those maps load on, as that game state, which is being stored on AO. But what you could do is you could customize a character, and you want to make sure you're customizing for a specific amount of damage, health, and things like that. Some of the character involvement like that could be stored on ArFleet for a very short period of time, and then you can actually, join the game and interact on that map that is already, deployed using Reality Protocol. So there's a lot of different things that you could very well do. I think right now in the beginning, you're going to have a bit of a mixture of uses for both the ArFleet to AO game state play when it comes to games. Hopefully that answers your question a little bit. And I would also say that the storage for, let's say, the temporary storage for like documentation is also kind of the same thing, where you may want to store the results of the temporary state of that of like a shared doc, and then that can be immortalized later. That's something that may have a bit of a balance as well, using both AO and ArFleet. And then, okay, yeah, so we're going to get to this as far as like the difference in like AO and ArFleet. So you're right, there is like a SSD layer, and I'm going to get into how a client works versus how a provider works. So let me just go ahead and jump to the documentation really quick on that, because I can show that pretty much right away. Just right over here. Okay, excellent. So in ArFleet JS, you're going to have these two sides being a client side. That client side is pretty much anything that can pull data from a ArFleet provider. Now, this is cool. There's a lot of upside opportunity here, where maybe you want to open source data temporarily, and it's very specific data. It could be a range of different things, but you can make yourself a provider, upload data as a provider to a solid state drive of some sort, and then that data can be made available, and people can set up a client and use that data, or at the same time as well, you can set yourself up as a provider for your own application, and then on clients, you can set up the front end of your application as the client, and you can do both things of like storing data as well as pulling data. So there's that element as well. There was a great hackathon project out of Bogota, Colombia, when I was in Bogota with the Weavers team, and the grand prize winner basically built TikTok, where they were able to store these vertical videos and display those videos very, very easily using ArFleet. And because the intent is to have like this timeline effect, those videos have a short lifespan. And when I mean short, obviously shorter than 200 years. We're looking at depending on how you want to set it up, you can have it as little as like a single day, and as long as you want to set it up for. But I think the general default setting is like 1 year at this point. Hopefully I kind of covered that question a little bit. Let's see if I missed anything. Excellent. Okay. All right. Moving on to just the general setup. Okay. So there's already this repo that you can you can clone, and you can start building, with this this application that already has like a front end and a back end. So let's go ahead and just kind of dive into that a little bit, and I can show you guys a little bit of how this works. So I actually want to create a new one here. So let's go to Window, Open Folder, Dev, AO, ArFleet, and then I'm just going to open another one here, but I'm going to call this ArFleet India, since kind of the target that I am speaking to right now. Open up a terminal, git clone, and then we're going to get started. So it's going to create everything for me. I'm going to cd into ArFleet-JS, and then open up another window here. All right, cool. So let me expand this so everybody can see. There we go. Everybody can see. I think we're good to go. Thumbs up, everything, emojis, everybody's excellent, good. All right. Oh, not that one. Let's get rid of that one. There we go. Okay, so we've got our back end. We have a doc here that's for Sergey as he continues development, because remember, a lot of this is still in testnet. We have an old version of a front end, which is a very, very basic front end, but we have this new version that this is the one that we're actually going to be diving into using Vite and JavaScript. And from here, let's go into the package. So this package is just for the combination of your back end and your front end. Okay. This README file will also break down a couple things on what are some of the basic differences and requirements that you need. One is obviously ArFleet Genesis Pass. You are going to also need to fund a wallet that gets created through this process. I'll show you guys how to do that as well. And then from there, how to spin up your client, how to spin up your provider. Okay, so first things first, the first thing we want to do is get our backend going. Okay, so we will cd into our backend, and then we'll just we'll install our dependencies. Make sure this is exactly where I need to be. Here we go, and make this a little bit smaller. There we go. Oops, that is not what I meant to do. One sec. Thought I copied that. Let's try this again. There we go. Oh, yeah, it's because I'm already in there. Backend. And then I just want to type in npmi. All right. Install all of my dependencies. Perfect. And then I'm going to do the same thing, go into the front end and install my dependencies there as well. CD into front end. And then npmi. There we go. All right. So I've got my front end dependencies all installed. I've got all my back end dependencies all installed. Okay. Now the next thing, this part of the documentation, I want you guys to know that I want you to kind of like jump back and forth from here to the README file, because there are active updates that are happening right now. So let's do this. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to set up our backend first. Okay. Package.json. This is everything in your package.json. But the next part is, let's look at the README file here. And all right, so we've done our clone. We've already installed the dependencies, and it wants us to. Oh, sorry, I'm actually skipping a step here. It wants us to actually You know what? I actually want to run the provider first. Sorry, I was doing this earlier, and this is part of that I want to make sure that we clean up later. So we're going to actually cd into our backend, and then we're going to spin up the provider. Oh, actually, no, I need to go back one more. There we go. Now, this is what's going to happen. You're going to see this wallet get generated. I see my token balance and everything here. And I already see that I have an ArFleet Genesis pass. Now, if you have not done this process before, you haven't done this process before, this will generate this wallet address. This is not my browser extension wallet. This is a wallet that is that gets developed when you actually create your first ArFleet app. Okay, so what you want to do is you take this and you go to your browser extension and you send both the Genesis pass as well as some wrapped AR to be able to fund some of the processes here. Okay, that's very, very important. So, all right, we have everything set up for our backend. Now let's go ahead and get our front end. So /ArFleet and then type in client. Perfect. So this is going to do the exact same thing where, let's see, hold on. Oh, it does a lot of printing here. Oh, it's kind of going crazy on me here. 1 second. Let me see if there's a error here. I think it's actually checking the active assets that I have in here. And I will have to look at exactly what it's doing later here. But now what you're basically doing at this point is you are now that you have your client set up, it has its very own Genesis pass, as well as the provider side has the Genesis pass as well. You can actually be able to set up that front end and that back end. So heading over to the front end and looking at JSON, this is this is built out exactly how you would run pretty much any typical Vite application. So I'm going to cd into front end, and I'm just going to run npm run dev. Okay, I can open this up. There we go, and we already have our existing front end. I actually see some assignments here. I see the 2 products and everything. Yeah. So we're already off to the races. And so at this point, you are pretty much ready to go to be able to have that front end and back end interaction for a fully operational ArFleet app. And I'm actually going to pause it there, see if I got any major questions. So stop streamer for now. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, whines, gripes, cries of anxiety, anything?
Do you want to quickly just touch upon what assignments and placements are, since you showed us that?
Yeah, so the placements are what I was discussing earlier. Is multiple placements is one. It's kind of like that consensus mechanism that works very, very much like the original ArWeave consensus mechanism, as well as with placements. You also have the AES encryption to avoid attack. So that's what placements are. Now the assignments, that's the assignments for the specific assets that are readily available inside your application at that very moment. Now earlier it showed 2 assignments, and that's because while I was playing with the application itself, I uploaded 2 assets, and those assignments are 2 available assets that I had uploaded previously. Let's see. No major questions. Everybody's pretty stoic at this point.
So I have a question. When you set up the provider and the client, how does that link to this front end that you've shown us?
Yeah, so the major link to the front end is number one is here. Actually, let me pull this up for you, and then I'll share my screen in just a second. See. Give me just a second. I'll dig into the source file for you here.
Thank you.
Where? Yeah.
But in the meantime, guys, if you all have any questions about this, either technical or non-technical, feel free to drop them in the chat.
Okay, item. Give me just a second. Go.
Also, we will be setting up a discussion forum. I will link you all to it. So if you all have any questions, you all can drop them in there. We'll also drop some resources for you all to get started with ArFleet.
Okay. Here we go. I think I have it right here. No, sorry. I keep looking in the wrong source file. Give me just a second as I look this up, guys. Sorry.
Yep. Sorry to put you on the spot here.
No, it's fine. I'll call you out later for it. No, I'm kidding. There it is. Let's see.
So in the meantime, we have a question here, if you can answer.
Yep, go ahead.
It's basically, does an app require to run its own provider, or can they just build a client-facing app and the user covers the provider costs?
Yes. Okay. So this is actually a great question. I'm actually going to jump to this part first, and then I'm going to show the API element. Let's see here. Okay. Let's do this the right way this time. Okay. You guys are able to see?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. So in our backend, we have our API development here. This is what is being called from our front end. Okay. So you have backend SRC API, and this is where our API configuration is, and then that's being called to the front end. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay,
I
cool.
will dive
Kind
into
of.
it
Okay, yeah.
later.
Okay, cool. We have a couple other things like your wallet. And there's the other element too, but I'll explain that part in just a second. We have the wallet integration. We have our provider details. Now, there's this weird thing that when your wallets are, you have two separate wallets that are created. You have your client wallet as well as your provider wallet. That is being created and actually created inside of the root of your user profile. So coming here, it's literally listed as your ArFleet client and your ArFleet provider. So if you're looking for specifically your wallet details or anything like that that are specific to ArFleet, you need to specifically on the MacBooks, you'll need to make sure you show your hidden folders and then be able to find that in the root of your user profile on your computer. So that should kind of answer most of the questions there. The next question is I'm sorry, what was the other question? Oh, sorry. No, sorry. What was the last question? It was okay. Sorry, pricing. Okay, and who pays? So coming over to here and going back to documentation, this is called lifecycle of the deal. So lifecycle of the deal, you can actually go to the documentation, go to learn ArFleet, and then look at lifecycle of the deal. Basically, the deal is you have a few different things that are being set by both provider as well as client. How much are they willing to pay for the storage, the duration of the storage, and the redundancy factor they desire for their data to have. Meaning, like, how many copies? That means how many placements do they want? How much do they want to go with the standard 3 placements, or do they want to add or more or even less placements than that? So those are the 3 factors between for the deal between provider and client. Once a deal is met, then the client can pay for the set amount that is set for by the provider for those three criteria. Does that answer your question? I believe it does. And you can read more into that in detail on this page here.
So I think generally, is this how the setup would go if you're a developer building an app and want the end users to pay for their storage fees?
Yes. So this can be done in several different ways. You may not necessarily have front end and back end. You may be wanting to pay for your own or for the storage of what your clients are doing. I mean, to be perfectly honest, this is very similar to any type of Web 2 launch, where all of the initial interactions for anybody that are using your application in its early stage or as test launch or anything like that, as beta launch or anything like that, you may want to fund all of that storage initially. And that could very much work in that same, Web 2 model that you see, and even with like some of the Web 3 applications as well. I know in a couple examples in the Arweave ecosystem, Accord did that for storage, as well as ArDrive gave you like free storage up to a certain amount. And that's because they themselves were actually, paying for that storage upfront. So kind of that same model as well. So there's that element. You can decide if you pay for the storage yourself. Maybe there's a certain threshold. Maybe the kilobytes or megabytes are under a certain threshold. So then because of that, you can, just pay for it yourself. Or if those files are much larger, then then they have to pay for it. There's a lot of different things that you could do with as far as like a model for growth of your application and usage of your application. The next part is you could just not have necessarily so much of a front end or anything, and you might just have a back end, but you're providing specific data. This data could be related to many different subjects or topics, and you're just making that data readily available for people to use within their projects or within their front ends. So there's a range of different things that you can do. You could just simply be a provider, or you can be a provider for yourself. You could be a provider for others. You could build an application that is just a client side and you're pulling data from providers. There's a lot of different things you could do.
Yeah, I think this adds clarity to the last question. So I have a question on the future of ArFleet. What can we expect in the coming months, weeks? Any alpha potentially? What does the roadmap look like?
The documentation's pretty clear at this point, but there are some updates that are happening with it just to make sure that everything's very, very clear, step by step by step by step. There's a couple things that even I noticed that I felt like I had to jump from the documentation and then over to the README file, and we want to make sure that's very, very clear. But to be perfectly honest, in its current state, it's actually, the documentation is pretty solid. Next part, to be perfectly honest, I think is really just to see people start building with it. There's a lot of opportunities. I've seen some really cool things built with it so far. Like I said, the hackathon project that was in Bogota, Colombia, was essentially a Web3 TikTok, and it was very, very impressive. So I think the next thing is like in perma-hacks and things like that, you might see a decent bounty for the use of ArFleet. So that I think that's going to be the next step. Aside from that, I'll have a couple discussions with Sergey, see if I can get a little bit more alpha and share with you guys later.
Yeah, would love that. And if you can share the link to the repo that someone built out, the TikTok, that would be great as well. I think it would give some reference on, how to go about this. We have some founders in the house here. So do you want to give them like any insights in general, I think from your experiences that would help them in their journey?
Yeah. Okay. So this all depends on what stage of being a founder you're at. You could be you could be pretty far along yet. You can have a project that is ready for deployment or already deployed. And so you've got a lot of different questions when it comes to funding, when it comes to scalability and things like that. The biggest thing, and I'm going to say the generic part first, and then I'll allow for some questions and things. Obviously, build something people want. And when I say build something people want, that means you went around and asked a couple hundred people what do they want. And so now it's okay to take your idea and say, do you think this is a good idea? I think this is not the right way to find out if the idea you're building for is a good way to validate through other people whether it's a good idea or not. Because to be perfectly honest, we're your friend. We're probably going to lie to you and you say, "Yeah, it's a good idea." No, actually, what I would like you to do is instead of telling them what you're going to build, you need to actually approach people and ask about the problem. So you start looking at the problem that you're building for and start asking people what they think is a solid solution for that problem. And then if you feel like you're reaching a consensus where your idea seems to overlap with many people's ideas and that idea consistently doesn't exist, then you probably got a decent product market fit, especially if they're willing to pay for the solution on it. That's another question. And it's like, okay, here's a problem. And, based on this problem, how would you solve it? And then on top of that, is this a problem that you're willing to pay for a solution, for a solution for? And so that's really one of the best ways to make sure that when you are trying to identify an idea to build for, that you're doing it in a way that you don't end up building something and nobody wants to use it because you didn't really truly validate it in the beginning. So I think that's probably the initial feedback, but I'd be more than happy to answer any other questions about funding, about building, about anything else as well.
That's really great insights. Yeah, we will set up a forum as well, and if you guys have any questions, drop them here because we're in the Q&A section of this show. But I think we already covered a bunch. So there is one question. I think you have a competitor for Permahax here. Any cool ideas of what you think people should build on ArFleet?
Yeah, I think now that ArFleet is in its current state, I really think we are really, really close to being able to do all the we've seen it all on YouTube. It's Web3 TikTok and Web3 this and Web3 that, and at this point with ArFleet, we could do all of that now. And if you want to build a very small version of Web3 YouTube and things like that, I think now is the time, and this is the opportunity to do something like that. And so at this point, I would love to see very creative directions on how people do that using things like ArFleet, AO, and honestly, I think what I would really love is to start seeing some mobile applications. Since now that ArConnect has a mobile application itself, I'd like to see somebody build some really cool mobile apps with ArConnect and it being mobile, and then some sort of app. You could put honestly a browser based Arweave TikTok kind of thing, and I think that would be a really cool idea. So there's a lot of ideas to play with, and I think getting really, really creative and doing things with the things that are coming out are a really good way to start approaching this, especially now that Permahax is around the corner.
Yeah, I think it's really great. We had both ArConnect Mobile and ArFleet coming along similar timelines. So we didn't just get the Arweave full stack, we got the Arweave mobile full stack. So it's really great to see. I do have one more question. I'm going to put you kind of on the spot here. Something new I'm trying out. who would you like to see next on the Hacker Hangouts? And I will try my best to make that happen.
Oh, okay. I spent a lot of time with Elliot and in China, and Elliot is an excellent presenter as well as an educator. He's a lot of fun to hang out with. You should, and make sure you ask him about our shared moped ride in China. That was you should ask about that. So that would be a good one. I think that's my vote. Yeah, Elliot from Reality Protocol, and make sure you tell him that I said to ask about our shared moped ride in Shenzhen, China. Yeah.
I will start off with that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, excellent.
Sweet, guys. Any more questions for Patrick here? I think he has great insights. We will, of course, you can ask him async as well. We'll set up a chat here. But any questions live right now? Going once.
If you also have projects, especially founders, if you're a fairly new founder and you want me to look at anything, I'd be more than happy to look at any projects that you're either thinking about, if it's an idea phase, or even something that you've already been building out. I'd be more than happy to take a look at it.
Thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate the feedback across the board.
Of course. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed the talk, and like I said, I'd be more than happy to answer questions offline as well.
Yeah, I think it was super insightful because you walked us through both versions of ArFleet. So devs and non-technical people can both try it out. So that was great. I think this will once we post it, it will turn out to be a great resource in general as well. I'm really glad, especially with things like this. I think that's one thing I would say that's a nice piece of alpha is we are starting to see ArWeave really come of age where we're starting to see much more user opportunities and not just developer opportunities. And I think that's really freaking cool. Can you talk a little more about that? I think some people are asking some questions in the chat, but can you talk a little more about user opportunities and how ArWeave is fitting into that now?
Yeah, so obviously, I just showed you guys ArFleet Web has the temporary storage layer, and if we talk about storage in that sense, we already have a cord, we already have our drive, and those things are very, very user friendly. But then we've got things like games with Reality Protocol, Llama Land and things like that. So then now you've crossed over, just instead of just storage, you also have entertainment. You also have a couple other things like Typer, which is the ArWeave version of Twitter or X, and several other things are coming up that allow you to not just be this developer centric focus, but more user based focus as well. I am totally blanking on the project from Tomo where he developed R Notes. Thank you. I was just trying to remember what it was. Yeah. Atomic Notes, thank you. Yeah, Atomic Notes is very, very user friendly. No need for any kind of crazy development or anything like that. Though there is an SDK for developers, so the developers aren't being forgotten totally or anything like that. But yeah, I think more and more every day I'm seeing more user applications, and we really need that. To be perfectly honest, I'm kind of tired of the infrastructure. Let's do something cool and something I could show my family and stuff like that, and see hey, I was part of the development of this. Check this out, and instead of having to explain a bunch of code to them.
I hear you there. I hear you. For the longest time, ArWeave has built a lot of infrastructure, and now with AO and ArFleet, the possibilities are opening up. So it's really great because like data is at the core of everything we do in our regular lives. We're constantly on social media, YouTube. Data is being extracted everywhere, and I think having this trustless source of data is like really important in this age.
100%.
Okay. I guess we do not have any more questions right now. But yes, we have the shout out for the insights. So thank you so much, Patrick. Quickly before we conclude, guys, again, a reminder, we have the ArWeave and debriefs. So do share it with your friends. And if you're in the city, just come over. We would love to like meet you in person. Patrick, this is an online invite for you. Specifically, please come for our events.
Recorded. I see what you did there.
But yes, I think thank you so much for giving us like this amazing, insightful session. I think it was super cool. Overall, not just the demo. I think overall your stories, the founder insights, the Q&A, super cool. Thank you everyone for joining us for this session. It will be uploaded to YouTube later on, and I will see you all next week. Peace.
All right, sounds good, guys. Loved having you here.